So recently I started reading A Brave New World. I hope you can see that. And one quote really struck out to me, and I hope you can see it here. If you can't, it is, "A love of nature keeps no factories busy." And it was so impactful to me because it was kind of just placed there as if it was not that important. It was just in passage as you're reading. But it really got me thinking. And it got me thinking, you know, a beautiful sunset, a day spent at the beach, getting sun with your friends, things of this nature, they are very fulfilling in and of themselves. It's their aim of such activity is to do the activity. And at the end of such a day, with your friends or hiking or watching a beautiful sunset, it is the type of day that if for some reason death, metaphorically here, would to knock on your door, you would be like, you know what, that was a good day well spent. That was a good last day. On the other side of things, if your last day was spent furiously after your goals, as so many are, in the sense of just, you know, sitting on a chair, looking at your computer, ordering some Uber Eats meal and just being there with your eyes tired and whatnot, you'd be like, ugh, that was it, wasn't it? Man, I wish I did something else. And this is not to say that all your days must be spent just out in nature or working, or that working doesn't have its place. Of course not. But the quote really strikes a chord here, that someone that spends time enjoying the first and actually in nature and in activities that are fulfilling in and of themselves will very quickly or gradually start to stray away from the opposite side of activities. So the ones that just see you in an office the whole day and after status games or climbing some corporate ladder or these types of things, because these activities, the more one does them, the ones that like the office type of things, the more one realizes, especially when you contrast with more nature, more fulfilling things, that they're equivalent. If the first is a healthy meal, let's say to spend a day in nature is equivalent to eating an healthy meal, a lot of these things are more like, oh, and I hope my camera didn't freeze there, are more like eating a bag of chips where it tastes good and it feels good, but it is very empty. Now, the reason why I feel like we're very driven to, or we're, you know, there's a lot of propaganda, quote unquote, to keep us after these goals and after, you know, you gotta keep going to your job so you can keep paying your rent and you can keep buying your clothes and your cars, and all of this is because it's keep things running. You know, someone that realizes that, and this was the context in the book, that keeps going more to nature and enjoy more, they will not want to play these other games. They will not want to waste their lives going to the factory and just putting in a shift to what? You know, you go commute 1 hour, go to sit at the desk for 8 hours or at a factory, whatever it may be, 1 hour commute back. When you're there, you eat a stale meal that's been kind of fermenting in the container. You go back home, you're so tired and depressed, all you want to do is just kind of zone out as you watch Netflix. And one thinks, why? You know, away from all these status games and want to buy these things and buy the car and the house, whatever, there really is no point to them. And there's no point, there's no fulfillment in them. And so only someone that has been in a lot of ways conditioned and has forgotten what actually matters, what actually fulfills, what actually should be of importance to life, only someone that has forgotten that can be led to believe that this is the way they can keep living. I think a good example of this is people that live in New York and say they love the chaos of it. I think they are out of their minds. You know, I've been there years ago for around a week, and it's like, it just doesn't make sense. How can you enjoy it? It smells bad. It's too chaotic. Everyone's rushing from place to place. The only reason you can enjoy this is because you've sort of brainwashed yourself to think you like these things that are not enjoyable, and playing these games that if you were to truly step away from it for a little bit, you'd realize, I'm stupid. I'm wasting my time. Now, with all of that said, you know, I think it leads us to a point that one may question what I'm saying, like, as if it's some sort of conspiracy type of thing, right? Like it's always the government that is impinging this on us just so the markets keep going. And I don't think it's, you know, or I think that would be a bit ludicrous to say that, because you just have to look around you to realize that it is just what is happening. When we live in an age where most people, old and young alike, spend most of their waking hours, and it's crazy when you really think about it, looking at a sort of dopamine slot machine, which is the social media you keep scrolling, same sort of concept, where most kids, the careers they dream of is to be a YouTuber or a content creator, where most men and women are considering plastic surgery, where there is like lip fillers or hair transplants or even more crazy things, where most people, or not most people, but where antidepressant consumption keeps increasing, where mental health diseases keep increasing, where the overall well-being of populations, especially in developed countries, keeps decreasing. Well, is it really a conspiracy? I think it's just reality. And I think the reality is that shows, and that's what I'm trying to get at here, that people are just after very vain things and keep getting more depressed. It just shows us we're playing the wrong games. It just shows us that, you know, these things don't really matter. Does it really matter? Even things like looks maxing, or more people that go to the gym take steroids, or all of these things are a complete loss of the plot. It's everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people are just lost in the sauce. And what we all need, if we're playing these games, is to go one day to the beach, to do nothing without these concepts of ambition and goals and whatever, and actually do that. Now, one may say here again to me that, oh, so you're saying that we shouldn't be ambitious, that we shouldn't do these things? And yes, that is exactly what I'm saying, because I do believe nowadays ambition has been corrupted, and it has stopped being about striving to be better with noble principles behind it, and it is a sort of escaping of pain. And most people that are after goals, they're not after goals because they want to make their community better and support their family. That's what most people are on about. They're after it because they think, from the point they are now on, that feels bad, once they get there to the top of this mountain, then they'll feel good. And the problem with this assumption is that, well, it is wrong. It is fundamentally flawed, because you're looking towards a point where all the effort you're putting until you get there, then you can stop putting that effort. But we forget to realize, very cliche here, that, well, most of the time is putting that effort. And so what one realizes here, and I think then there's two sides to this thing, is that, especially if you're ambitious and you put this effort in, and then you get to a point that is a sort of summit of some mountain, well, I think there's two sides to it. The first side is that you get there and you realize that you feel more empty than you've ever felt, because you were placing all your hopes in this, that your life was going to be solved and your pain was going to be removed, and, well, it's not. And you're still here with yourself, with your problems. Sure, you have a bit more money, a bit more stability, but it's like it's shining a light on the void that it is inside. Now, people that feel this, hopefully, most of them, realize that something has to change. And I think that leads you down a path that, hopefully, at the end of it, you see the truth and you see the light. Now, the other type of people is a much more dangerous one, because it is one that leads to the corruption of your character. It is the people that get there and feel the same void, but think, you know what, that probably just wasn't it. This was just not the right mountain. I got to keep climbing higher and higher and higher. And the problem with that, with these mountains, especially when one is just fully focused on the end result, is that the ends will justify the means, and you will slowly, what starts more noble will eventually, if you continue, and you can look at this as the most successful people that have the most money and the most things, how corrupted they become, and how, I think the Epstein whole situation shows that very well. How, I'm sure these people, most of them didn't start like that, but you allow corruption to corrupt you, and you don't fix it, you're going to end up down very dark roads. But all this to say, because I can see the argument against it, which is like, oh, so then what? Then I just go and do nothing and sit on the beach the whole day and just have no ambitions whatsoever? I don't think that's it. But I think that someone that finds their peace and their fulfillment as they're doing it, and they recognize that they don't need to get there to be fulfilled and to be happy, is one that has a much better approach to it, because it's not like you don't want to do anything. You still want to do things, but from a very different perspective, from a fulfilled perspective, from a joyful perspective. And that is a perspective that completely shifts things around. It's, you're not the person that now is going to sacrifice their whole life to go to the factory to, just be rich and do all these things and play all these games. You're not going to play those games. It is similar to, someone that is hungry for food. You recognize that, okay, you have to cook and you have to eat this meal, but then you're not desperately after the next meal and thinking that you have to go to the all-you-can-eat buffet and just stuff yourself up. No, it's you cook the meal, you do this one, and then you move on. And I feel like the healthy way to go about goals is you do have hunger and you want to feed or eat, but you're not after it in a desperate way, thinking that these things are not going to arrive and thinking that until you get there, you have to be miserable. You don't have. And in this matter, I do believe the classical example that people tell you, oh, life is not a race, it's a marathon. I think it's very wrong. It is a bit more correct than the first, but it's wrong because both of these are still races. In both of them, you're still trying to get to the finish line as fast as possible, even if one is a bit longer. In both of them, there's no time to look around and enjoy what's going on around you. There's not. It's just very focused on the end. I think it's much more, not like a race or a marathon, but it is much more like a hike. Because a hike, the purpose of a hike is the hike itself. No one that goes on a hike just wants to be helicoptered into at the top. Of course not. You want to walk it. You want to enjoy the hike. And any hike, especially if it's with good people, with friends, has periods that is a bit more rough. Then others that's a bit more slow. Then at some point you all stop and see a good view in the way to the summit. And you have a meal. And it really, there's time for everything. And when you do those, at the end, especially of those days, being very direct here, going all the way to the beginning, you always feel perfectly fine. At the end of those days, you're not thinking about hitting the goal and I gotta maximize the profit on the thing and the return on you're not thinking about those things. You're just thinking, if I died today, I would be a happy man. If I don't wake up tomorrow, it's fine, because this day was very, very good. Again, obviously not every day can be like a true hike, a literal hike, but every day can be a hike. Every day can be an ambitious attempt with time for everything that is allotted to it. To rest, to work, to enjoy, to push, to all of it. It has to, we must have time for all of it. Life can just be about all these things that are pushed onto us, like, oh, go and gamble and then do the looks maxing and then you gotta get more girls and more money and more cars. I don't want that. If you want that, fair enough, but I think a lot of us have grown tired of that, and I don't want that, and a lot of us don't want that. We want something more real. It feels more fulfilling. It's not about reaching the end of your life, the most money, more jacked, and the prettiest face. It's not about that. I think it's much more the opposite. It's about reaching the end of life with the wrinkles on your face, with the scars, with your body worn out, with, the marks of the sun on you because you were outside, and of a life well lived. And I don't think a life well lived is a life of maximization, of status and money and playing these games, because these games don't fulfill. What fulfills, or let me reframe it, a life itself well lived is enough. Because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be.